It's what, how, and why. And I'm a big believer in writing shit down before you do it. Not only to remember and figure out how you do it. You start with the end in mind. What does the processes look like? Like, what is a podcaster that's starting to have a podcast and they want to have a banger podcast? Like a top podcast. Like, what are they doing? Like, what sound are they investing into? Like, what production crew? Like, how does it look on social? How does it, like, how engaging are we going to be? Like, I have it written down. I want to be the most engaging podcast on social media. Whether or not we are, I know we do a good job of it.
Yeah.
But it all starts with this idea of writing stuff down. Like, how does it all look? And then how are you going to get there? So what do you got to buy? What are we going to pay people? You got to learn about business stuff. You start to learn that it's a way more than just, you know, a couple mics and sitting there bullshitting like you're hooking up your laptop. You're learning about all these things you got to do, but it's a small business.
Yeah.
And then the why you're able to recite and look at. That's why it fired me up, Taylor having this stuff on his lock screen yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I remember the days of having stuff where you're talking to yourself on your lock screen. But day 30 Will Compton isn't going to feel the same as day 1 Will Compton, who's extremely motivated about doing all this stuff. It's going to get tiring. It's going to get harder. It's going to be harder to wake up, grinding, working out every day, eating food, staying disciplined, doing all these things. And so writing it down and seeing it every day, and why you do it is what's going to get you over those things. So it's like those 3 things on what, how, and why have been what I've kind of carried over principle-wise into anything I've ever done. I'm realizing like my brain is disadvantageous for me right now. Like
Yeah.
the way I am, the way I'm approaching an open field tackle, I think, don't miss this. You can't miss this. All right, here you go. You're going to have to make this play. And now I've learned like what you think you end up becoming. And I've learned that I've just kind of handicapped myself thinking that way mentally because I'm trying to not let people down. And so I'm thinking the worst in certain situations other than like, you know, just flowing, letting it all happen. And so I start putting this sports psychology stuff to work on this whole writing stuff down, visualizing, like literally meditating and seeing yourself and feeling what's going on around you, hearing the noises around you, everything, breathing correctly, cues, self-talk, all these things that kind of tap you into this zone to play the game and everything else. So I carried it over into pro day training because that's something practical. That's something you can write down and actually measure. You can track your progress with, you know, benching how many reps and jumping this high and running this fast. You can monitor all that stuff. And so I just had goals. Whether or not I sat down with an agent and he's like, this is what you're projected at. It's 4.85. So what scouts had me at. Like, you know, when they come in and meet with you, these agents, those dumbass agents who try and recruit you and tell you, like, show you all this stuff.
Lie to your face.
Yeah, bro. And it bothered me that was like the perception of me. But knowing that like I believed and knew I can run, like I could run, that the boy could run, that I can do all these things and outperform these guys that were at the combine. Like, so I wrote down like, you know, 4.540, wrote down like, you know, I forget 20 something reps on bench. Like I'm writing down everything. Right. And then when I'm visualizing, I'm obviously training my ass off and doing whatever it takes eating wise to be on a regiment. And, but visualization wise, like I'm feeling my, you know, hand in the turf. I'm feeling my stance. I'm seeing the tens of pro scouts down around the 40-yard line. I'm feeling the pressure that should go into pro day. I'm trying to make this stuff up in my head, what it's going to feel like. All these things, the senses, all that stuff. And so that way, when I'm running the 40 and I'm at pro day, like I feel like I've been in that environment, you know, hundreds of times compared to that being the first time I'm going to be there. So I'm going to be a little surprised or that anxiety builds up a little more. And so, yeah, bro. And to add to that story, I had a sports hernia. I couldn't squat.
4.52 with the hernia.
It was a 4.54, but yes, with a sports hernia.
That might be the fastest blue collar 40 of all time.
Hey, I'm telling you, there's some stories like if
I'm gonna have to do
Dob and I talk about it and like how like, you know, it's not like it needs to be known and stuff, but we like, bro, do you remember that training? And we'll like go back and forth because I couldn't squat. I had to be on like this. It wasn't a pitch shark or anything at the time, but it was more something that sat on your shoulders.
The safety squat. Or
yeah.
It's attached to a rack. Like
correct.
I got you.
Yeah, and I could only quarter squat. Like I couldn't. I had to run. I had to do speed training with a wrap on my a wrap on my hip most of the time, and I could only go up to 70%. I had to more so just do mechanics other than actually training. It would flare up on me all the time. Like it was brutal. Like I had to truly lean into this sports psychology stuff, and that is why I am such a believer in the psychology and the mind and everything else, because I saw it coming to fruition with when you should be at a disadvantage not being able to squat, not being able to speed train, do all this stuff, and then go out there and still perform at that level. And you get to that day and you got Toradol and all that stuff running through your system.
The bare necessities.
Yeah, the bare necessities to make it through and grind it out. And then 2 days after that, I fly out to Europe to get my sport hernia surgery. And then I get a sport hernia surgery and get it all taken care of by the time I get to rookie minicamp. And, but yeah, bro, grinded that out. And from that moment, I was on cloud 9 when they told me I ran a 4.5 and I had ran like a 6.8 3-cone and a 4.1 something pro agility or something like that. Like that night, bro, I was on cloud 9, like tears in my eyes that like it all worked. Like this shit fucking worked.
Yeah.
And from that moment, I was bought in on the visualization. I was bought in on the law of attraction stuff. I was bought in on all that shit, bro. I'm talking hype train. They make fun of, sometimes you hear people make fun of like the speakers and the YouTube and the stuff like that. But I'm just thinking like I was brainwashed to it when that stuff happened, because that's just how I wanted to feed my mind on achieving goals.